Are you one of those people that believe that Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey in Spider-Man Brand New Day? I don't think that's the case. Welcome to the Dad Flex, where we take a brief moment away from dad life to talk about something I'm obsessed with, which is geek life. You may not know I'm a huge Spider-Man fanatic. I actually wanted to name my son Parker. My wife shut that down, but let's get into it. I don't think Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey in this movie. Who I really think she's playing is Adriana Soria, better known as the Spider Queen. I really don't think it's Jean Grey at all. I never believed that for a second. She's being set up to be seen more of like a villain type, and the only way Jean becomes a villain is through the Phoenix. And there's a lot to build up to that. Jean Grey is such a monumental character with the X-Men. She's never thrown into a villain role that fast, that quickly, and plus the tone of the movie leans heavily into like biology and transformation, not cosmic powers. The Spider Queen is a mutant. She possesses telepathy, telekinesis, the ability to control spiders, eventually becomes the central villain behind Spider-Man's comic storyline, Spider Island. And I think that Marvel is adapting that storyline for this movie. Here's why. In the trailers, we see what appears to be Sadie Sink's character locked and strapped into a chair behind this glass containment area. We then see like major explosions around the buildings, and this is where I believe the Hand comes into play. They are looking to release Sadie Sink's character because they need her to continue the research that they have been funding. Which leads me now to the reasons why I believe more than ever that Keith David is playing Miles Warren, who is a scientist that eventually becomes the Jackal in the comics. Now, personally, I don't think we're going to see the green Jackal type form in this movie. I think Marvel's just going to use him more as a brilliant scientist in this entire project. Who better to fund this project, to fund this research than the Hand? Normally, Oscorp would be funding this kind of research. But remember, Oscorp does not exist in the MCU. Norman Osborn literally confirmed this in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oscorp doesn't exist.
So if there's no Oscorp, the Hand becomes an absolutely perfect replacement. Now let's go back to Keith David's narration when the trailer first dropped. He talks about spiders going through different kind of life cycles. But what if he's actually not talking about actual spiders? What if he's talking more about people becoming spiders, which is what happens in the Spider Island storyline? People don't instantly become giant spiders, they go through stages. They develop spider abilities, their bodies go through changes, and eventually that more fully mutated, monstrous spider creatures under the Spider Queen's control. Keith David ends his narration by saying, and for those spiders who make it through, it amounts to a kind of rebirth. To me, it sounds a whole lot more like people who survive the actual transformation. Now let's take a look at Peter Parker. I know it's a very popular theory that he's going through the transformations of becoming the Man Spider, which yes, it could be true, but what if there's more to this? We see him being a bit more aggressive than what he usually is. By the way, he just rips apart the sword in the trailer, absolutely smashing Scorpion. How do we best know Peter Parker to be this aggressive bully version of himself? The Venom symbiote, which if you recall at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, a piece of the symbiote is left behind in Earth 616 by Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock. Also in the post-credit scene of Venom Let There Be Carnage, the symbiote already knows who Peter Parker and Spider-Man is. But what if the black eyes is not so much him becoming Man Spider, but it's a little hint at the symbiote that's taken over? And what if this symbiote is actually accelerating his mutation? Now, in Spider Island, Reed Richards is a scientist who's trying to understand and stop what's happening. But we don't have Reed Richards in this movie, but we do have Bruce Banner. And in the comics, the spider virus is the cure to the mutations that the Spider Queen has been spreading all over Manhattan. My bad, I said the spider virus. What I meant to say was the symbiote is the key for the cure. Again, we don't have Eddie Brock in this world anymore. And again, what if we do have Peter Parker, who is already tied with the symbiote? So what if Bruce Banner is the one who studies Peter's bond with the symbiote to create this MCU's version of this cure, of like this anti-venom? Another thing that really stood out to me to further back up my theory was the Spider Queen just doesn't want to take over New York. As I mentioned, the Hand already wants to build an army, but the Spider Queen is obsessed with Peter Parker. She wants him as her mate. And if you think back to the trailer, these infected or mind-controlled civilians ask Peter, "Yo, Spider-Man, you doing okay? Did you get rid of that monster inside of you?" Now, because the Man Spider is the most popular theory, most people are assuming that if they got rid of that mutation inside him, which of course could be true, because remember, Peter Parker did ask Bruce Banner, so could you get rid of the bad aspects but keep the good? So yes, this could mean that he's trying to get rid of that mutation out of him that's turning him into Man Spider. But what if it's actually Adriana Soria speaking through civilians, and the monster she is referring to is the Venom symbiote? It might sound like I'm reaching here a little bit, but really it's not that far off, because she could see that symbiote as a threat to her because it is the cure. She sees it as the monster because she believes that Peter Parker's life is better with her instead of with that monster. Also, another one of those civilians does say, I think I'll see how MJ's doing. Obviously, there's a lot more of a personal threat, but what if the reasons behind it are not just so much to scare Peter Parker or just to get rid of MJ altogether, because the Spider-Queen knows that Peter Parker loves MJ. Because again, she wants Peter all to herself. And yet another interesting connection. In Spider Island, MJ and Peter Parker are broken up. They are no longer in a relationship because Zendaya's character in the movie has no idea that her and Peter Parker were once in love and once an item. She was forced to forget that part of her life ever existed. So instead of being exes and broken up, in this movie their past was erased from everyone's mind except Peter Parker's, of course. And in Spider Island, MJ shows a type of resistance to the mutation. It's slower to grow with her because of her past engagements with Peter Parker. I believe the MCU is adapting the storyline, and if something is actually happening to the citizens of New York and it's slower to happen as Zendaya's character, this is a great way to tie in how Peter Parker tries to explain to her the past life that they had together and the reasons why he had her forget all of that. And one more key item. A while ago, there was some leaked set photos of Sadie Sink wearing a very large overcoat to cover up what she was wearing, her costume for the movie. But at the bottom above the boots, right below the overcoat, it looked that the pants were very yellow or goldish. This led a lot of people to believe that she was going to be Firestar. Tying the yellow outfit with the red hair, it's a really good reason to believe Firestar. But if you see a picture of the Spider-Queen in the Marvel Comics, you could also see that she has those long, big yellow boots over her outfit. So it's really not that crazy. So if you put it all together, replacing Oscorp with the Hand, using Miles Warren as a scientist, making Spider-Queen the Source, using the symbiote to accelerate Peter Parker's aggression and his mutation, having Bruce Banner fill that scientific role, and with the Hand looking to get that mutagen to increase the power of their army would also make sense as to why the Punisher is involved. I honestly think we're looking at one of the biggest misdirections that Marvel has ever pulled off. And alright, just for fun, in case I'm wrong, another person she could possibly be is Rachel Summers. She's the daughter of Scott Summers and Jean Grey. We already know that Scott Summers is returning into the MCU in Avengers Doomsday. She's from an alternate future timeline. She also has the red hair, incredibly powerful telepathy, and is kind of like an anti-hero with her childhood trauma, and possesses powers of the Dark Phoenix. So if Marvel and the MCU wanted to introduce the X-Men and mutants without introducing Jean Grey and throwing her behind the wheel as a villain right away, Rachel Summers makes a little bit more sense there. What do you think? Am I completely crazy? Or has everybody just been looking in the wrong direction? Make sure you're following for more to talk about dad life, work life, and everything in between. And this geek life and this Marvel obsession mind definitely falls in the in-between.